Hi there. Welcome to the training webinar. I'm Dale Franks. I think one of the worst things I ever did was put a countdown timer on the live version of the webinar, something you don't see on YouTube, but the live webinar viewers do. And before I did that, I could kind of ease into the webinar. And if I started at, the 15 or 20 or 30 seconds after 10, it didn't matter. But there is something so oppressive about watching that last 30 seconds count down where you just, ready or not, time is here and you have to start broadcasting. Today, we are going to talk about something we don't talk about much on the webinar. I get a chance to talk about it once every 12 to 14 months or so, maybe probably closer to 13 or 14 months, and that is case management. Most of the time, we talk about how to build processes and the various tools that are available to you in Process Director to build and configure a process, and how to build email templates, how to work with a process timeline, how to manage timelines, that kind of stuff. Case management is different. Many processes that you have can be handled by a single form and a process timeline. I want to take some vacation. I fill out a form, I submit it. Goes to my supervisor, and my supervisor says yay or nay, and then it goes off to HR so that they can, delete the appropriate number of hours out of my account for vacation that I've accrued, and then I get a notification I'm good to go, and I don't show up at work for those days. And that's very simple. I don't have to worry about that. But there are other processes that are so complex and so convoluted that they are difficult to model in a single process. For example, a decent percentage of Process Director customers are in higher ed. So think about what it takes to get a single student on campus and all of the different parts of the campus's administrative apparatus that have to work together to get a student on campus and ready to go to class on the first day of class. Your facilities people have to ensure that there is a room available for them. The room presumably has to be cleaned before the student gets there, even if that is technically the last time that room ever gets cleaned, as long as they're resident there. The campus police have to issue the appropriate parking pass for that individual. Since I spent 10 years as a military policeman, I know a little bit about what you have to do to issue that parking pass. You've got to check that they have insurance, that their vehicle is actually registered to them, or if not to them, if to say their parents, that they have the appropriate documentation that shows that they're allowed to drive that vehicle. And so that they are authorized to come on campus with it, the vehicle is insured. Then I issue a parking pass, and I've got to, record that parking pass associated with that student. Oh, by the way, we got to be sure that they can eat. So we've also got to be sure that they can have a meal card. So they have to identify themselves properly there and be able to eat. Oh, wait a second. For many universities, I've got to set up healthcare for them. So now I've got to be sure that I have access to their prior medical records. I've also got to, issue them their student health ID card and all of the other things that are associated with getting them set up so that they can have sort of a seamless transition from whoever their primary care physician was at home to whoever it's going to be at the school. All of these things require separate processes from separate sections of the university. For today, I've got a similar example of that. And let's walk through my example. Then we'll get into the details of how this is built. Now, what I am about to show you is extremely complicated at least in terms of my ability to show it to you in a brief 2 hour webinar. So rather than building things from scratch, although we are going to look at some of the individual objects, this is all going to be pre-built. There's just too many moving parts to make this work, to have me build it from scratch. And as always, if you want a copy of what I'm about to show you, please just email me or drop me a note in the BP Logix community. Which reminds me, announcement, should have announced this first. In fact, let me go ahead and share. In the BP Logix community, I am going to be hosting an AMA tomorrow, where just show up and you can pretty much ask me anything you want. I unfortunately can't access my menu there to get to the community, so I'm just going to be doing what is called an AMA, or an Ask Me Anything, and it's right here on events. For those of you who are members of the community, I did send out an invite. For those of you who are not members of the community, again, drop me a line or contact your BP Logix account representative, or whatever. Just let us know somehow, and we'll get you an invite into the community. So this is what we're going to do tomorrow. It's just going to be in an open live room, and we're just going to chat anything that you want to chat about. It doesn't even necessarily have to be about Process Director. If you don't want it to be, it can be about anything that you want, but we're going to do that tomorrow. So feel free to join me for that. So let's take a look at what it is that we're going to do today. Now, for this application, what I have is an order process for a manufacturer. So think about a complex product that you might buy. Well, there are a lot of add-ons that you might need to keep that product going. I mean, look, if you buy a car, at some point you're going to need some work done on that car, even if it's just regular maintenance. You're going to have to order parts for it. You may want to get a warranty for it. And many products are like that. I order a product. It may be a complex product. In fact, this happens with Process Director. It's a software product, but there are add-ons that you have to buy for that, some of which happen on an ongoing basis, like the purchase of services hours if you routinely use BP Logix to perform services for you, whether it's troubleshooting some application you've built, or whether it's to have us build an application or two. Those are ongoing adjuncts, I guess, to your purchase. And it's the same thing if you want to use the example we're about to see. If I'm going to order a set of complex products that I might need parts to maintain over time, I might need training on those products. So I also have services, not just parts that I might have to get over time, but services. And how do I collate all of that stuff? Well, the way that you do it in Process Director is via a case management application. So let's just run through here and let's do a new order. Now, I'm not sure why this form is opening so big. It shouldn't be that big, but I have an order form here. So we're going to order a set of products. So we'll pretend that I am the manufacturer of very complex products. And so you're going to make an order of these products. And over time, that order is going to need additional support. There are spare parts that you're going to need to buy. There may be other services that you need, stuff that maybe you don't want to perform yourself and you would like to outsource to me, or services that you're not technically competent to perform that you have to outsource to me, or just normal things like training or support, or maybe you just want an on-site visit for an inspection or something that you have bought. And all of that needs to be collated into a single place where I can track everything that is related to this order. The order is what kicks off the entire case. So when we talk about a case, what are we talking about? Well, in this particular case, it's an order. Now, you may have multiple orders, and each of those orders will have its own set of spare parts, perhaps, or its own set of services. I might need training on one set of parts, but not, or one set of objects that I buy, but not on another. And it's always an interesting question about what constitutes. Sorry, I've got a download thing that's bothering me. Forgive me. Um, it's always an interesting question about what is a case, right? So let's take, uh, since a lot of you work in higher ed, let's take a student. Is the student a case? Well, maybe. I mean, at a high enough level, anything is a case. But generally, we would consider a case a set of related transactions in a single subject area. I mean, if we were to try to track everything that a student did in a single case, that would get a little unwieldy. But what we might want to track for a student, let's just talk healthcare. Let's say the student has to go to the hospital for a couple of days. Okay, that one hospitalization might be a case because there's all kinds of things that might have to go on associated with that case. Well, is the student suffering from a medical condition that might require surgery? Okay, well, we have an entire process for the surgery. How are we going to issue medications to that student? What medications will he need? That is another separate process. Doesn't involve surgeons. It involves the whoever the hospitalist is on that floor and the pharmacy. What sort of nursing care has to be given to that person? Well, that's another process with how many nurses visits does that person need? How often do we have to take their vital signs? So I've got a separate process there. Will that student need some sort of physical therapy? Well, okay, great. If that physical therapy is a follow-on from that hospitalization, we're going to want to track that as well. That's an entirely separate process. What I have with a case is a bunch of separate processes that are all related to a single transaction, but that single transaction branches out into multiple processes. Now, I don't know when that student enters the hospital what exactly is going to happen. Will they receive surgery? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe their appendix needs to be taken out. Maybe it doesn't. And again, in the case that we're about to discuss here, if I order a product, a very complex and expensive product, will I need spare parts for it? Well, maybe, maybe not. Will I need training? Maybe, maybe not. The thing about a case is that while all of these transactions, all of which are separate processes that have to be processed by different people, they're all related to this, in this case, single purchase. But I need to be able to group all of these separate processes with their own forms and their own process timelines into this single transaction. So let's make the transaction. So we have our customer. So I'm just going to select our customer, and I'm doing this just so I don't have to fill out all of this other information. Okay, great. So I've got my customer. What is it that they are going to order? So let's see. They're going to order a magnetic transport controller and a photonic field accelerator. And let's give them one more thing. They're going to order a magnetic transport controller. Okay, great. I probably should put in the quantities that they're going to order. So we'll give them 3 magnetic transport controllers, and let's give them 2 photonic field accelerators. And, oh, I've already got magnetic transport controllers. Okay, so let's change that to a pulse crystal defragmenter, and they're going to need 2 of those. All right, well, I've got an order. So I'm going to send this order out. It's going to be processed by other people. Great. I'm going to go ahead and submit this order. They have purchased the items that I manufacture, and they are good to go. That order is done. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not other things that they need. They may need parts, and they may need services. And by the way, This is actually a fictionalization of a use case from a BP Logix customer. They're in manufacturing. They don't manufacture this. They manufacture other things, but they have this very complex customization system for the things that they manufacture. And some of this customization is done simply by, ordering different parts, and that's going to change the manufacturing process as they custom build things. Sometimes the parts are just add-ons that the customer can add on. And some things need to be installed directly by our customer, our process director customer, who are a manufacturer. They need to actually install these things. So there are services. Sometimes the customer installs them themselves. We don't really know when the customer makes the order what the final shape of that order is and what are all of the other add-ons that are going to be added to it. Now, the thing is, each one of those add-ons is a separate process. So in this example, parts are a completely separate item from the actual manufacture and delivery of the order, as are many of the add-on services, some of which might happen over time. I might make an order here, and let's go ahead and the order is complete. I'm going to go ahead and close this without saving. And now I've got this order showing up on my task list. I need to complete the order. I'm not going to complete it yet because I want to have access to it on my task list. But let's look at my active orders, of which I should only have one. And it's this order from Zorgon Peterson, my customer. And I'm going to open that order up. And that order opens up in its own workspace. It has its own dashboard that shows the order. So when I open up this order, I can see the initial order form. I can see what it is that they ordered. And now, do they need some spare parts? Well, maybe they do. So let's add some parts to this order. So now here's the thing about parts. Sure, I may need an initial set of spare parts that I want to order just for having them available initially to do parts replacement myself, and that's fine. But over time, I may need to order additional parts to support the initial order, in this case, order 25-002. That's my order number, and we're going to take a closer look at this form in a second. 6 months from now, I may need to order new parts. 6 months from now, I may need to order an on-site visit. The thing about cases is that once I move away from the initial transaction, which prompts the case, I might not actually know what other transactions are going to be added to this case that need to be associated with the initial order, how many there are going to be, how often they're going to occur, or even if they're ever going to occur. I simply don't know all of that. It's unpredictable. Cases generally have an element of, this is not a word, but I'm going to use it anyway, ad hocness to them, because what happens after the initial transaction, in this case, the order, is largely unpredictable without without a known outcome. In a process, an individual process, I know what starts that individual process, and I know what ends it. What ends this order, technically, that I kicked off by buying those 3 different items, is to have those products delivered to the customer. Once the customer receives them, the order is done. It has been fulfilled. There's nothing else for me to do with that transaction. It is now complete. But just because that initial transaction is complete, I still have, in this case, a parts order form. This parts order form may take place 3 or 4 months after the initial transaction is complete. But what I need to be able to do is to take a look at that order and to see all of the parts orders that were associated with it and all of the service requests that were associated with it. In a case, I'm enabled to do that by the existence of the case definition, which we're going to take a very close look at here in a little bit. What the case definition does is it provides the linkage between, in this example, the three different processes that may occur. There's one process I know that will occur. That is the initial transaction. But I have two additional processes that may or may not occur, and if they do occur, may occur several times, several iterations over time. So time is also an element of a case. This one part order might need to have a case maintained for it until they sell or replace these initial items that they have ordered. And so I may need to track this over 5, 6, maybe 10 years because this order is still technically an active case until they no longer have those objects. So what the case definition allows me to do is to have a place to store all of the information that has to be shared between all of the different processes. One of the primary things that has to be shared, of course, is this parts or this order number here, 25-002. I need to be able to associate all of these parts and ultimately all of these services with order 25-002. This is a case property. It is stored with the case instance itself, and it is shared between all of the processes that take part in this case. Other things that get shared, the address of the customer, the name of the customer. All of that is shared information that is part of the case definition. As I said, we'll take a look at that a bit later. Let's go ahead and order some parts real quick. So we need a couple of acceleration mounts. So let's pick up 5 of those. And then we'll need some gravitational delimiters. And as expensive as they are, we're probably going to need about 10 of those. And then we need some Hayes-Zhao field isolators. We'll probably get 12 of those because we're going to need to use those all the time. So great, I've got these 3 things that I need to have with my order. I'm going to go ahead and submit that. And now I have a parts order. It's ongoing. I'll complete it later. I can complete it now. It doesn't really matter. So they need these parts, fine. We'll just ship those parts off. Great, that order is now complete, and I've got one parts order here. They're also going to need some services, so I'm going to go down here and click the Add Services button, and let's see, they're probably going to need Chronon disposal every month, so they'll need 12 of those so that they're good for the next year. And then we'll give on-site assistance. They probably expect to call us out twice, so they're just going to order 2 on-site assistance visits. Training, well, we got to train all of their people, so we're going to have a big training class. Probably only need 1 of those, but we're going to add that on. And then we'll just add one more thing here, ion thrust recalibration. That's probably going to have to be done, let's say twice a year. So we'll go ahead and get 2 of those. And now I've got the services that I want, so I'll submit that order. And while I'm here, I might as well just go ahead and complete it so that I don't have it running. Actually, you know what? I probably shouldn't have completed that. Let's add some other parts on here. I'm just doing this so that we can have some processes running and some not running. They're going to need 2 hydromagnetic bearings. They forgot about that in their initial order, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and submit that, and we'll get that set up for them. And we'll keep this running for right now. So I'll just go ahead and close that form. And I should have 2 parts orders up here. Okay, great. So I've got this case. Now, the nice thing about having a case is that all of these things are related. So if I really want to see the entire history of this case in one place, I can certainly do that. I can generate a report that provides me with that history. And here is that report. This is order 25-002. So here is my original order right up here at the top with the 3 items that they bought. And then here are their two parts orders. So parts add-on PO1, parts add-on PO2, and the two different things that they ordered there. And then here are their services add-ons. And finally, here is my $200,000 price for all of the products and parts and services that they purchased. So for every customer, I now have the ability to find that case, open it up, and with my active orders knowledge view there, and I can just open up that case. I can add new parts orders and add services orders for this particular part order. Now they may make a separate order sometime in the future, and when they do, it will be its own case as well. The nice thing about case management is that all three of these processes, all of which go through their own process timelines, are all connected together. And anytime I need to add to this case, and there are only two things that I need to add to this case, it's either a parts order or a service order, I can add them to this particular order, and I can get an entire history of everything that happened with this one order in my system because I'm doing it through case management. So now let's talk about how all of this got built. So I'm going to go ahead and close that case, and we'll need to go into the content list. And by the way, just so that we know, this is one of the reasons why I kept that parts order alive. These are separate processes that are running in Process Director. They both happen to be running concurrently. So I still have not actually fulfilled this order. I still have a task to do that. It still remains in the task list. Now, if I click on this, I'm perfectly fine. I will open up that form. I'm great. If I decide I want to complete this order, I can do that. So that order is complete, and so it disappears off my task list. And as soon as running processes refreshes, it will be gone from my running processes list. So I can see what's going on in the system for each one of these individual transactions that are going on, because each one of them has their own form and their own process timeline. And so therefore they are running kind of separately and independently. What allows me to connect all of this together is the case itself. And well, the case is kind of magic, as we'll see here in a second. So let's leave that alone for right now, and we'll just keep that parts order pending for the moment. And let's go take a look at what it is that I've built here. Before we get into the application itself, just sort of an aside, this is all being run off of Excel data. I have this products data here. It defines what my products are, what my parts are, what my services are, and who my customers are. And I've built all of the appropriate business values to fill the customer drop down. And once I select the customer, to grab their customer information out of the database and stick it on the form. So there's all of this, just this background data, just to let you know that that data is there. For us, more specifically, we need to talk about the case itself and the case definition and how it works. So let's open up my fulfillment case. The case definition is the central data repository for all of the shared data that needs to be passed back and forth between all of the different processes that might be running in association with this case. And so in this case, the case is, I probably shouldn't have used the word in this case. I probably should have said in this example, the case that we are creating is the fulfillment case for the initial order. On the Properties tab of the case is where we define all of the information that we need to share between all of the different processes that are going to be a part of this case. So we actually have 3 of them, and you can see them down here. I have orders, parts, and services. And each of them are their own different animal, own different form, their own different process timeline. We'll take a brief look at them later. But all three of these things are going to need to share some information. And this is sort of the first big thing that you have to think about whenever you are creating a case. Once you know what your case is, you now have to decide what is the information that needs to be shared between all of the processes that may be part of that case. Well, obviously, the order number is one of them. I do need to know what the order number is. I need to track all of the parts and services orders by order number so that they're all associated with the initial order. The order date, obviously, is important. Whether the order is complete or not is important, and all the rest of it is just the customer information that will need to be shared between all of the orders. Now, remember, these are separate processes. The services are probably done by a completely different set of people than the people who fulfill the parts orders. And the people who do the parts orders are obviously not the same people who actually do the manufacturing of the products that were part of the original order. I have three different sets of people, technically, who are doing three different things, but they all have to be associated with a single order. So on the Properties tab, that is where I put that information. Now, for each of these properties, I need to define their data type. So I have several different data types to choose from. Now, I think text, first of all, is the default data type. It's also by far the most common data type. I've even put the order date in here as text because, well, I'm not really doing any date calculations for it. And I really just need to, I think the only date I'm really using is the actual order date for each one of the orders, and that's just a form field. So I can actually pass the order date from the original form field as text to the other forms for parts and services via the case definition. And I'm storing it as text. Text is kind of easy to do because Process Director sort of on the fly, especially if it is just date information, day, date, month, or day, month, year. Process Director kind of seamlessly translates that from date time to text and back to date time as needed. So I kept text here, although technically, I suppose you could say I should make it a date time field. I didn't. I just kept it as text. Technically, whether my order is complete should have been a yes or no field so that I am not having to parse the actual words, yes or no. I could just make it true or false. But again, I kind of lazed out on here, but there's also a method to my madness. There are there are different ways that you can do this. And if I actually want the yes or no, it's easier if I just make it text in the first place, and then I can show the yes or no as text rather than try to work it through a control like a radio button or a checkbox. Although I guess a checkbox would be kind of easy, I might just want to see the actual text, yes or no. And in this case, the default value for complete is no. I am ultimately going to have to set that as yes. To show that that case has been completed, or in this case, the order has been completed. Now the case is kind of magical, but I think I'll need to explain the magic a bit later when we talk about building the dashboard. For now, it's enough to say that case has a stickiness to it. And once I attach a case instance to a process or a form or a knowledge view. Or maybe it's the other way around. Once a form process or knowledge view or what have you, once it touches a case, because cases are sticky, that case ick rubs off on the form, the process timeline, the knowledge view, whatever it is. Now they're associated with that case. There is a linkage to that case. You don't have to do anything to make that linkage happen, either on the configuration side, although you probably will do some on the configuration side. It's not necessary. And you certainly don't do it for knowledge views. There's no case configuration for knowledge view. If I run a knowledge view in the context of a case, even if that knowledge view would return every object on the system, if I just ran it on its own, as soon as I display it in the context of a case, that knowledge view automatically is going to filter out any object that is not associated with that particular case. So we'll take a look at how that magic works in a little bit as we're building the dashboard, or as we're looking at the dashboard and we're looking at the dashboard objects. And then we'll kind of see how it just automatically happens. It's kind of magical. In fact, yeah, let's talk about it when we talk about the dashboard here in just a little bit. The second thing that the case does is, or that you have to do to configure a case, is to specify a case dashboard. Now, I have this dashboard here. It's called order number. We'll look at it a bit later. And what I wanted to show, and what we saw just a few minutes ago when we looked at our active orders, it actually said order number 25-0002. And that's because that's how I've named it. Order number, and then I'm using the case system variable for this property, order no, which is order number. That is just going to show whatever the case number it is that I'm looking at. And this, by the way, is kind of a best practice. And I've seen other implementations that don't do that, but it really is kind of important to have an order number as part of the case, simply so that I can have a unique identifier for each transaction that creates the case. So in my case, the transaction is a order of objects that need to be manufactured and sent to the customer. So that manufacturing order gets an order number, and that's what gets shared out in all of the case objects. And we'll go into the construction of this order number case object here a little bit, in a little bit. Now, I'm going to create my case definition first. I don't necessarily have to. I might create my transaction that creates the case. I might create that first, although if I do that, there's going to have to be a lot of back and forth between the case and the form. It is best to make the case first. That does require that you think ahead about what information it is that you're going to need to share across all of the transactions that might occur as part of that case. I could probably live without passing the customer information across. It's there for convenience. If I put the customer information into the original order and then save it as case properties, that means that whenever I create a second order, I don't have to go hunting for who the customer is. I don't have to manually enter that information anymore. I can just pull it out of the case instance and just paste it into my form and display it in the form without having to reconfigure it again or force my end users to re-add that data to the form. The order date, though, yeah, that's pretty important. So I probably am going to need to share that. I'm definitely going to need to share an order number, and I'm going to need to share a complete yes or no case property so that we know whether I'm dealing with a case that is a fulfilled order or one that is still waiting on that order to be fulfilled. So let's take a look at the individual objects that are going to make up our case. So I know what I need to share. Now we have to figure out what it is that we're going to share it with. Obviously, the order is what creates the case. So let's start there. And let's start with the order form itself. So this is the form that I'm going to use to create my initial parts order. And it's also the form that is going to need to supply the case information. So I'm going to need to do a couple of things here. Actually, before I even look at it in the design view, probably going to want to go to the properties. And this is one of the reasons why I said it's best to do the case first. Because what I'm going to need to do is, if this is the form that creates my case, then I need to automatically create an instance of the case, and I need to select the case definition for which I'm going to create an instance. So just like we have the automatically start this process, which kicks off a timeline instance whenever the form is submitted, I need to kick off a case instance whenever the form is submitted as well. So I need to fill out this property too. And if you try to make the form first, well, you're going to run into lots of issues. It's going to get kind of tedious making the form, because every time I try to do something on the form, as we'll see in a second, if it doesn't exist in the case, I got to go back to the case and create it, and then go back to the form and configure it. Because in this form, this is where, if we look at our case, customer name, address, city, state, that's got to come from somewhere, and where it's going to come from is the order form itself, because I have the customer name, address, city, state. Now, I added this drop down just to make my life a lot easier. Up until yesterday, these were all just regular controls on the form that I was filling out by just selecting this drop down. I did that so I didn't have to type in a whole bunch of stuff live. But in most cases, if you're doing this for existing customers, this would be fine. Obviously, if it's a brand new customer that you've never worked with before, you would have to fill out all of these form fields. But the important thing about these form fields is in their field properties. So this is the customer name field. I need to get this into the case definition, or sorry, the case instance, whenever the case instance gets kicked off. So there is a property on form fields called the case property. And in this case, I have selected, I forget, webinar case. That's what I was looking for. And it's not showing me everything that I want to see here. So or is it fulfillment? Okay, it's fulfillment that I was looking for. And I have two of them because I have another version of this that we're not using today. I really need to ensure that I have unique names to group in the value picker for this. But in any case, I don't. So it's the fulfillment case, and it is the customer name. What that means is that this value is not going to be saved with the form. This value is going to be saved with the case instance. So even though it uses a form control, we're kind of forcing it to operate much like a signature comments control does. You know, when you type in signature comments, when you're reviewing something and you decide, okay, well, I'm going to deny this request and I've got to add a signature comment. It's required if I deny the request. Well, that signature comment doesn't get saved with the form either. That signature comment gets saved as a comment on the timeline activity instance itself. And the only way that I can get that comment back, I can't open a knowledge view and look for the signature comments field, because it's not really a form field and it won't show me that data. Now, obviously I can for this because this data is actually form data and it does get stored with the form, but technically, and I can retrieve it from the form, but technically it gets stored in the case instance itself. I should only have one form field that is associated to this case or this case property. I should only have one source field for this property. So in this instance, the customer name, the address, the city, the state, the zip, those are all derived from the form fields on the order form. Any other place that I am going to use it, so if we look at the zip code field, again, it's fulfillment, customer zip. When I put the data in this form and I submit this form, that data is going to be transferred over into the case instance that gets created. Any other time that I want to use the customer zip code anywhere else in this process, I am going to simply pull the value from the case property. I am not going to let the user enter data there. I no longer have to. There is one data entry point for each case property. Any other time where that case property is used, it's only going to be one way. It's going from the case instance to the form. This is the only place where I am going from the form into the case instance, and that is when I am creating the data. Now, it's possible that different forms may be associated with different case properties, and they may be the source for a different case property. I don't really have it here, but it could be. I could have a case property. Well, I really couldn't because I'm going to have multiple parts orders. But I mean, technically, if there was only going to be one part order, there may or may not be a part order, but if it was a case where there was just a single part order that would ever be made, then I could have just as I have an order ID or an order number, I could also have a parts order number, and I could take that order number from the parts and I could create that as a case property. And I might display that elsewhere in the order form, just to note that here is the parts order for that form. Now, in this particular instance, because I can have multiple parts and multiple services orders, I can't really have a case property for the service order number and the parts order number because there's going to be multiple ones of them. I don't know how many there's going to be. And so in this particular example, I would not have that as a case property, but there are examples where I might want to take some value from one of the other processes, and I might want to replicate that to every other object in the case. In my particular instance, that's not true, so we don't have to worry about that in this example, other than to know that that is possible with a case. Now, everything else on this form is only related to this specific transaction, which is cataloging the items ordered and the price of this order. Obviously, I need to know who submitted it, when they submitted it, and the order number, of course, will get created de novo every time that this is submitted. So the order number doesn't exist until the form is submitted. But everything else, well, actually, the order number is the one other property that is, in fact, associated with the case directly, because I got to get the order number from somewhere. This is the field from which I get it. The submitter, the submit date, and the customer information. The submitter, the submit date, and the order information is all just unique to this one form, or to a single form instance that gets created when an order is run. So the only properties I have to worry about that go directly into the case itself are the order number and the customer information. And that's largely all of the information that I'm going to share between the different cases. So I've got my order, or I've got my case definition. I know what my case properties are. And now I have my initial order form, which is going to provide me with all of the values for all of the case properties, with the exception of the uh, of the complete. The complete has a default value of no. It's the only one that has a default value. So as soon as the case is created, this value is going to be set to no. And it's answering the question, order is complete. And as I wrote here, default is no. So when this case instance gets created, the order number and all of the customer data are just going to be inserted into the case instance from the original order form. And then I have this extra case that will just automatically be created and will automatically be set to no on case creation. This is the only property of the case that is not set from one of the transaction form fields. So once I have my order form and I create it and submit it, my case is now running. I have all of these fields that are associated to the case property, and the form itself is directing the creation of the fulfillment case as soon as it is submitted. So now I have a case with a running case instance once I submit this form. But I have these two other things that might happen. I've got parts and I've got services. So let's look at the parts form. Now the parts form is a little bit trickier. Now I am going to create an add-on number, and but that add-on number is not really associated with the property. In fact, none of these fields create a case property or write to a case property. Not a single one of them. But I am pulling a lot of properties from the case. So if we look up here at the header, I've got this system variable control where it pulls the order number. So I've got a submitter, I've got a submit date, I've got an add-on number, I've got whatever parts are being ordered. Everything else is coming out of the case itself. So right here, even though it looks kind of the same and is in the same format, these are actually all just system variable controls, all of which are pulling case properties: customer name, address, city, state, zip. All of that is coming out of the case instance itself. I am just replicating them and showing them on the form, but they're nothing but system variable controls. They do nothing but display. I am extremely irked with that capital I in zip. So I am going to change the label on this form, which is, of course, going to require that I save it. Everything else is just everything else except for one thing are unique to this form. Now, here's the thing. There is a difference between what caseworkers see and what non-case workers see. What we have seen so far is what I would see as a case worker. And when I talk about a case worker, I'm talking about someone who has access to the case and the case dashboard itself. And in fact, we just saw that. If I see the case dashboard, which we looked at a few minutes ago, and I am basically temporizing because I'm waiting for this loading spinny to go away, because at this point I want to show it to you. As a caseworker, I actually have access to the active orders. All right, well, fine. It's obviously not going to save for whatever reason. Oh, I don't have any active orders. I killed that order. Rats. I knew I should have kept that order alive. Fine. Let's create a new order and let's do it real quick. So we'll go with that as my customer. Let's make this small enough again so that it actually displays inside the Zoom window. And we'll order a portal drive timer Um, we'll just order one of those, and we'll order a ventral containment limiter, and we'll get two of those. There we go. And now we'll submit that order. There was a reason why I wanted that order to stay up there, and that was because, let me close without saving here. Um, Let me refresh my active orders. There we go. Now I've got an active order from Brewer Corporation. I can open it up, and now I am in case context. I have an open case running. It is 25-003. That's the order number. And I can see all of the associated data with the case. If I have access to this case, and as you can see, I do, order 25-003, I am a case worker. But what if I don't have access to this case? What if I am not a case worker, but I do need to take a parts or a services order? Okay, well, I can still do that, even if I am not a case worker, but there is a little step that I have to go through to make that work. So if I'm not a case worker, and I'm just going to go here to order tracking, and I'm going to go to parts, and I am just going to, well, actually, since I have a parts form running, let me go ahead and, well, that wasn't what I wanted. Fine. Um, Let me do services because parts and services are going to work exactly the same way. Um, Let me run a services form. Now, I am not in case context. I don't have any orders open. I just closed the case we were just looking at. I am just somebody who has access to Process Director and who can submit a services form. Well, I want to be sure before I submit a services form that it's associated with an order. And right now, it is not associated with an order. My order number is blank. This has not been submitted. And in fact, I can't submit it until I associate it with an order. So I need to select the order with which I want to associate this. So I click that button. It shows me a knowledge view, and it gives me all of the orders that are available to me. I think 225-003 is the one that we created. So I am going to select that. And once I do, that disappears and it gives me my order number. It gives me all of my customer information. It's already ready. All I have to do is just say, okay, well, we're going to hold a big training class for them. We're going to do one. And now I can submit that order. So I am not a case worker in this context. I don't even have access to the case, although I do have the ability to select the case if I know the order number, and it implies that I actually can't even submit or create this form because none of these fields are available to me until I associate a case with it. But once I make that linkage to the case, which in this case is 25-003, this now just gets added to the case automatically. I don't have to be a case worker to work on this. So if I am not a case worker, I don't manage the case. I'm just somebody who works in the services department. And this comes in and says, oh, hey, you've got this training thing that they have ordered for $4,000. I'm going to have to go through the process of that. I'm going to have to select an instructor. I'm going to have to coordinate with the customer, set up a training date. Is it going to be on site with us? Are we going to have to send an instructor on site with them? If we're going to go on site with them, there's probably some equipment that that instructor needs. I'm going to have to set up the process of gathering that equipment and having it ready so that the instructor can either come and pick it up, or I can send it to the instructor, or I can send it directly to the customer and the instructor will just meet up with his equipment there, whatever that process is. And it might be quite convoluted because I can make up ways to make training more complicated at the drop of a hat. I don't have to care about the case to do any of that. Now, I do have to know what the order number is, because when I initially create my services form, as we just saw, I do need to be able to select the case to which to associate it. And for me, I don't even know it's a case. For me, it's order number, 25-003. So somebody just, you know, picks up the phone, calls me and says, hey, need a training course for order 25-003. So I pop up this form, I select 25-003, and it tells me, okay, well, here's my customer. They're in London. I probably should have a phone. I do have a phone number. I just didn't show it here. I went through the trouble of making Swiss and British phone numbers in the proper format for London and Zurich, so that and I don't even show the phone number anywhere here. So I now feel like a failure. But now I know who the customer is. Now I can contact them, ask them about when they want to schedule the training and what we're going to need to do the training. I don't need to have access to the case to work as parts or services. I don't need to have access to the case to actually create the case and to be able to submit the new order. That's just a form that pops up on my screen that enables me to create the initial order. But for both the parts and services form, now I don't need it on the order form because the order form is my source form. The case doesn't exist when that form opens. The case doesn't exist until it's submitted. So I never have to be a case worker to submit a new order. And I don't have to be a case worker to submit the services or the parts form, as long as I provide the ability on that form to create that link. And in this case, I'm creating the link via the attach KView control. So this is the first knowledge view that we're going to look at. Now, what the attach KView control does is it enables me to create the attachment. Now, I can attach a whole bunch of different things. In this case, I'm going to attach it to the process, but I can attach things to forms. So I can attach this form, for example, to another form or another process using the control. I should probably actually copy that. Because that's not a big enough text box to see it in. I think we're going to want to see it in a more legible format there. So let me bring over Visual Studio Code and we'll just create a new text file. I can paste this in. Now, the attach KView control is not a UI control that can be selected out of any of the drop downs, any of the control drop downs. So it's not in other controls or other input controls or anything like that. It is a form control tag, and it only exists as a form control tag. So it is the attach KView control. And in this case, the control is named select fulfillment case. I'm going to attach this to a process, and I give it the text, select the associated order. Now, what the attach KView control does is it allows you to, whenever you click on this button, because this is essentially a button control that displays a knowledge view. And you're going to use that knowledge view to create your attachment link. So I've got the button, but now I have to specify the knowledge view that I want to show with this attach KView control. In order to do that, let me drag this out just a little bit on the side because I may need to do some more copying and pasting here, and I want to be able to select it quickly. So in the control itself, this is a system variable control. I've done the attach KView and this select fulfillment case. So let's go back here and look in our case folder here, which has a whole bunch of knowledge views, one of which is select fulfillment case. So I'm going to use an attach KView for the select fulfillment case knowledge view. And this is the select fulfillment case knowledge view. Now, there's one property that makes this an attachment knowledge view. And if you're going to use the attach kview, you're going to need to set this property. We're used to ignoring this, perform this action when entry clicked, because we're used to keeping it at its default value of open, which just opens the object that you click in, in what is usually the name column of the knowledge view. But we're not going to do that this time. This time we're going to give it attach link, because we actually need to attach a link. And what we're going to attach a link to, if we go to the Options tab, is a case instance. So this knowledge view only returns and lists case instances. And because we have set the perform this action to attach link, what it's going to do is attach a link from that form to whatever case instance gets selected from this knowledge view. Now, I probably could have made this knowledge view a little simpler. Technically, I don't really need the author and the last updated. I could delete these two controls. That would probably make it a little easier to use and give me less data as an end user that I have to see. But I do need that name column, because I do need to be able to show the name, which contains the order number for that fulfillment case instance that I am going to click. And when I click, then that click is not going to open the case instance. It's going to create a link because of this attach link property. It's a normal knowledge view in every other way. It runs against a case definition. It runs against only the fulfillment case. So it's only going to return objects that are associated with the fulfillment case. I'm going to set it to attach link. And on my options, I'm only going to have it return case instances. And that's going to create my attachment link that we saw just a second ago on the services form when the form opened up and it didn't have a link. Well, this is what makes that attachment link works. I have a filter on it, but it's a user prompt, so I can just find a specific case. So if I have, a whole bunch of cases and I need to find a specific one, if I know the order number, I can find the specific one simply by typing it in. So this is kind of just for the users. By default, there's no filter here, and I didn't use a filter previously because I don't have enough cases to worry about. But if I had a whole bunch of cases, this filter would allow the user to search for a specific case. But now that I have this kview attachment, we'll have to go back to our services form. And we'll take a look at the section in which my attached kview is located. And okay, I'm not sure what happened there, what had happened to my text, but we need to go to its field properties. There is a field property called in case context. We can get there. And it's right there, in case context. This is a yes or no answer that just says this. It looks at the form and it just asks a question. When this form opens up, is it in case context or not? And it's a binary. It can only be yes or no. And so if I open this form and this form is not in case context, then I want to display this section of the form. Now I have similar displays for everything else. So here is I have inadvertently deleted okay, I don't know what I did, but whatever it is, I don't like it. So we're going to get right out of that. So we'll go here to I don't know what's happening there. But again, don't like it. But I have uh, similar conditions on the other sections on the form. I only want them to display, so field is visible when in case context equals yes. So I actually get to see two different versions of the form depending on where it is that I open the form from. If I open the form from just a link to the form and just run the form here, the only thing I'm going to see is my select order section. However, if I'm already in case context, and by the way, we haven't looked at this case since I created that service order that I created a few minutes ago. Look, there it is. There is SO or S01. So that is my service order. Now, if I open up a new form from here, well, I'm already in case context. I'm looking at the case dashboard. And so therefore, I don't see that select a case section. It just gives me all of the information I need to go ahead and create a new services form and submit it directly from the case folder, because once I'm looking at this case folder, I am in case context. If I'm not looking in the case folder, so now I'm back out of case context. So if I create a services or parts form, because the parts form works exactly the same way, I need the content list. That's what I'm looking for. Parts form works the same way. It has the same attach K-view control built into it as well. Now I'm out of case context, and once again, I have the selector that requires me to select the associated order, which would be, in this case, 25-003, which is the only active order that we have running now. So I've got my original order, I've got my parts, and I have the services and all of the associated stuff that goes with the case. It all sticks together in case context. Let's take a look at what in case context means, because as we saw whenever we looked at the case definition, there is a dashboard for this case called order number. We need to now look at that dashboard. So a couple of things about this dashboard. The dashboard is only going to show up for an end user whenever I enter the context of a particular case, in this case, an order. Once I am looking at this dashboard, I am in case context. Every knowledge view that runs, every form that I see, or form instance that I see, are only going to be things that are part of this case. Any object that I create from here will automatically have that case ick rubbed all over it, so it will now be associated with the case. Case context is sticky, so anything that I do here is only going to show me stuff relevant to the case. For example, let's take a look at this K-view widget right here. This is my parts widget, and it is looking at the knowledge view called, oddly enough, parts. Let's run that knowledge view. So we're going to go here to our parts knowledge view, and we're going to update and run it. This is every parts order that I have. That's all this knowledge view has. It returns a single column, the parts order. That's all it does. And it shows me every single parts order that I have in the system, 23-009, 25-0012, and 3. There is nothing special about this knowledge view. It looks at the parts form. It opens the form when you click the name. It returns form instances, and it has one column, the name column. It doesn't even have a filter. This is just a plain vanilla knowledge view that just returns a single column, the name, from a single form instance. It's difficult to describe how not special this knowledge view is. But if I run it, as we just saw, it's going to show me everything. But all I had to do is just drop a widget here and said, okay, show me that knowledge view. And from that point on, if I am looking at that knowledge view inside this case, then that knowledge view is only going to show me any parts orders that I've associated for this case. This is 25. Do I not have a parts order for this case? I was pretty sure that I did. All right, well, fine. I'll submit one. So I definitely have a parts order now. Let me refresh it. Great. So there we go. Parts order parts 01, P01 for order 25-003. It's only showing me that specific parts order number. But let's get out of case context. Actually, I'm in case context here. Now I'm super curious. What happens when I open it from here rather than, I mean, it's displayed here in the case itself or the case instance. So case is what I'm looking for. Parts is what I want to run. So case, well, there we go. Now we'll run parts. We'll just run the knowledge view. There we go. It's going to show me everything, that every parts order that has ever been made. But what does the filtering for it is actually just seeing it inside the case itself. Everything automatically gets filtered. By the way, similarly, this initial order area here, this is a form widget or form instance widget, I think, whatever it's called. Yeah, form instance widget. And I'm just saying, I want the order form, and then I have two choices. I can either be the latest form instance for it, which is not really relevant to me, or the form instance that opened this case. So I selected, obviously, form instance that opened this case. And when this case dashboard opens, it's just automatically going to show me the order form instance for this case so that I can see it right there. Now, the nice thing about that is, as a case worker, it also allows me to work inside the case. If I go back and look at that form instance, I have my task completion buttons here. I can complete this order, or I can set it to an ongoing order, which resets the ongoing, back from yes or back from no to yes and vice versa. So if I complete, it's going to set it to no or yes. And if I hit ongoing, it's going to set the case complete property. That's what I'm talking about. It occurs to me that I forgot to tell you. I'm talking about the case complete property, or is case complete. It has the two values, yes or no. The default value is no. I can set that default value to yes with ongoing, so that so I can complete the order, but I can still set the case to be ongoing. And now I had to restarted the complete order there, so that sets the case back to ongoing, or sets the case property back to yes. But in any event, case is just magical. I don't have to do any special configuration to my parts form or my services form, they're just going to show up. The knowledge views are only going to show me the parts and services form that are relevant to this particular case. So I've got my initial widget for my widget that shows me the form that started the case. So that's my order form instance. I've got two knowledge views, and it just pulls my parts and services uh, knowledge view, because I have another knowledge view here called services, which, just like parts, if I run it, will show me all of the services. But I don't have to worry about what they show me if I just ran them from the content list, because I know that whenever they show up in case instance, they're only going to show me whatever objects are attached to this case. Again, it happens without me having to do any special configuration because case context is sticky. Now there are buttons. So view order and all add-ons. That's a button that opens a report. We're going to have to look at that report a little bit later. We got time, so we'll take a look at that report a little bit later. But let's look at add parts and add services. They're basically the same button. I should probably deselect all of these things. We'll just open up add services as an example. So what this button does, it has, like any button control on any dashboard, it just allows me to open a form or a report or what have you. This one just opens a form, and the form that it happens to open is my, that's not supposed to do that. It shows that it's selected here, the services form, but it's not showing up in the control. Okay, we'll have to take a look at that. I know that's a bug that's been reported. I think it's been fixed, but it's not fixed on the dev version that I have. I probably need to get this upgraded to get rid of that. But in any event, it opens up the services form. Once again, there's nothing special that I have to do here. This happens to be on a case dashboard. When this dashboard runs, I'm going to be in case context. So when I click the add parts or the add services buttons, it's just going to open the form. But because I clicked it here on this dashboard in case context, it's going to open up the form inside the dashboard, which means it will automatically be in case context as well. So anytime I open up a new form from this dashboard, it's also going to be in case context, and it's just automatically going to show me all of the data I need. Unlike just opening it from the content list, as we saw earlier, where it makes you, pick whatever your context is. Every case definition needs a dashboard definition associated with it. You have to have some way of displaying the case. There are various ways of creating this dashboard and determining what it is that you want to show on that dashboard. The case, well, let's just take a look at it. I don't have to describe something. I can actually show you a thing. Let's go look at another case management application. So in my archive, I've actually got 3 of them that I've presented at various times. So let's go to case management and case management 2. So this is the original case management application that I created way long ago when we added case to the project. And in this particular case, I think it's in resources, and it's claim number. That's the name of the dashboard. Now in this one, I am just viewing knowledge views, and I've got a knowledge view that shows the current case, which was kind of stupid now that I think about it, because it's generally only going to show me one form ever in that knowledge view when it opens up in case context. That's why in the one we're looking at, I actually have the form displayed. And then I have the cost estimates and adjusters report. This was an insurance deal. And I think I did something similar in case management too. where on that dashboard, there's my case dashboard. Um, yeah, I basically did the same thing, except I put current case on the top. But in this one, I actually have a knowledge view that shows documents. So documents that were uploaded actually show up at the documents knowledge view, and then I have another knowledge view that shows me links to the form. So in this one, I've got documents in one knowledge view and forms in the other knowledge view for the well, the additional processes, the ones that you create after you create the initial case. But again, I had this current case this current case knowledge view up here, which is kind of dumb. I think the way that I've done it in the one that we're looking at currently, where I can actually see my initial order form, I think that's a much more helpful look at the case. So when I have a case, I have to specify a dashboard, and then I can configure the dashboard however I want, with the knowledge that this dashboard is only going to show me objects that are in the context of this case. We've done this to try to make this as easy as possible for you as an implementer to build case management applications. And I will tell you that you are probably not using case management enough. There is a tendency when you have a tool like Process Director to try to shoehorn in a whole bunch of stuff into a single process timeline. And in fact, we used to have an example of that. I don't think we supply that particular example anymore in samples. Yeah, we don't. I don't think we used to have, before we had the template library, we had a sample, and one of which I really loved was the onboarding sample. So let's take an example of onboarding a new employee. Once again, a whole bunch of different people have to do different things. And for every employee, not everything has to be done for a particular employee, right? Let's say that you hire somebody who works in an office. Okay, there's some things that you're going to have to give them. They're going to need probably a phone. They're probably going to need a computer and the associated equipment, which means they're going to need a network logon. So they're going to need a place to work. They're going to need a desk and a chair of some type. So I got to go to the facilities people and get them a desk and a chair so that they have a place to work and maybe an office. Then I got to go to the IT people. You got to get a computer on their desk. Oh, and you've also got to get them set up in the network, and you got to give them a network logon, and you got to get them an email address. So I got IT people working on that. And then the HR people, okay, there's going to be some training, so you're going to have to assign them to whatever initial employee training we give them. They're probably, they may or may not need business cards, so we're going to have to get business cards for them. Let's assume that they do. But then the next day I hire a warehouse worker. Are they going to need a desk and a chair? No. Are they going to need a network login? Probably. Are they going to need their own computer in the warehouse? Probably not. There's probably going to be one or more shared computers that everybody in the warehouse can log into when they need to put in their time or whatever. And then they log out and they go home. But they don't need their own desk and their own office, and they don't need their own computer, but they do need a network password. They do need an account. They probably need email too, so that they can log in and see that. But the vast majority of their day is not going to be spent at a computer. It's going to be spent, driving a forklift around in the warehouse or loading trucks or whatever. So different employees go through a different process. So what we used to have was this, and what most people have today, because I've actually seen this, is that to do all of these things, they're trying to shove all of that into a single timeline, right? With all of these different parent activities, for IT and for facilities and for HR and for maintenance, that gets super complicated and gets super difficult to track uh, because some things can't be done until other things are done, right? Like the IT people, you say, okay, this fella needs a computer. Okay, great. Where? Oh, well, we haven't given them an office yet. Well, then I can't give them a computer. So these things have to be done in a certain order, but they're all done by different people. Trying to do all of that in a single timeline gets confusing, especially when I have two different classes of employees who largely go through similar and sometimes shared procedures, like everybody's going to need to go and get whatever HR training they need when they're bought aboard. Everybody's probably going to need a network password and an email account. But some people are going to need desks and chairs and computers, and some aren't. Some people are going to need business cards, some aren't. Trying to do that in a single process can get super confusing because it's going to require that you do this really complex nesting and chaining logic. You could do that in a case, though, where I have the HR people. They take care of getting the person on board, they hire them, they go through the process of scheduling them for the HR training. Great. Once they bring them on board, then we figure out what it is they need. Do they need a computer or do they just need a network password? Well, I'm going to submit the form to get IT working on that. Are they going to need an office? Well, I better submit the form to get facilities working on that. And I can actually have multiple processes running at the same time and independently of each other, but all of which are attached to that single case of hiring the employee. And that's probably a better and more efficient way of doing it than trying to do it in a single process. So as you move forward, because I wouldn't expect you to go back and look at all your existing processes and figure out which ones you could caseify, but as you are creating new processes, think about, all right, what is the whole thing I'm doing? Is this a really complicated process or is it a case and something that could be handled through case management? Now, one of the things that case management does do is that it does kind of fragment things. Now, if I'm a caseworker, then I can kind of see everything that is going on with this case. But even as a caseworker, this doesn't show me everything. And so one of the difficulties with case is pretty much anybody can get to here, to this screen, to say, okay, well, at the very least, I can see the order and I can open up individually each one of these parts orders. So I guess that's cool. And I can see each one of those. And if I have multiple, I guess I can look at them all at one time. But they're still kind of separated out. I need to have some way of unifying all of these different case objects into a single overall view. And we did see that earlier when I clicked view order and all add-ons, because I do need a single place to see everything that was done for this order. And the best way to do that is via a report. Now, I am not going to go through the details of how I created this report. Like I said, if you want this project, drop me an email. I'm happy to zip this up into a PDZ file and shoot it right back to you so that you can actually see what I did to create this. But in order to make this work, I had to create a report. If you're going to make a case management application, I'm not saying it's mandatory that you make a report, but you are almost always going to. And if you have not used the report designer before, well, this is a good opportunity to learn because I can do in a report something that will be difficult to do elsewhere. I could do it. I could create a knowledge view that concatenates all of the different objects into a single thing. Then I could create a business value that took that knowledge view and gave me totals. And then I guess I could export that to CSV. That seems like a lot of hoops to jump through every time I just want to see a report. Seems like it's easier to make a report. The big hump that people have trouble getting used to whenever you're dealing with a case management application is the fact that I do have, as in this example, three separate processes that are going on largely independently. And it may be three processes. It may just be the order. It may be 30 processes. That's the other problem. I don't know. And if I do have a single order and 15 parts orders and 15 service orders, giving me 31 items, just looking at it in the case screen is very hard to decipher. So you're going to have to create a report. It's going to be very difficult to do with a knowledge view in any meaningful way that lets you see what's happening. But in the report, I can. And I don't just have to show it in a logical fashion. In a report, I can also build infographics and all of the other bells and whistles that I might want. So when you are doing a case management application, a report is nearly mandatory. But the thing about reports is they are so flexible that it will allow me to actually get the base data from knowledge views. So I don't have to know any SQL. I don't have to know any programming or anything like that. All I have to know is how to create the individual knowledge views that give me the base data that I need, and I can use them in a report. Because the nice thing about a report is I can have multiple knowledge views to provide my report data. So think about what I need. I need all of the data for my parts. I need all of the data for my services, and I need obviously the data about the order. So I have 5 different data sources that show me different things. I have orders and add-ons parts. I should probably run these knowledge views so that we can see them. So I've got orders and add-on parts. We can just run that knowledge view. Once again, this knowledge view has nothing special to it. I am just pulling back the data off of my parts forms, off of all of them. And because these are also in an array, I'm getting multiple rows back for each form. But I can see every item that was bought, what its unit price was, what the quantity was, what the line total was for it, what the sales tax was, and what the parts total was on every form. Now, obviously, I'm going to get some little different information here because the part itself is in an array. So I'm going to get a row in the knowledge view for every row in the array. And for items that are not part of the array, like the sales tax and the parts total, which is the total adding the sales tax for all of my parts, those are all going to be repeated on each row. That's not a big problem though, because it doesn't matter then. I can just pull one row of data and I can get the data that I want. And the important thing is that I can see all of the individual parts that I ordered. So I have one of these for orders and add-ons parts. And I have one for orders and add-ons for services, which is basically just the same thing. And that's services. I wanted orders and add-ons services. Sorry. Services and add-on services. So I got to have that knowledge view, which does the exact same thing that we just saw, except in this case, it does it for services. Then I need to get my totals because I've got, Rats. I should have. Let's go back to orders and add-ons parts. It doesn't really matter which one we're looking at. They both operate the same. So for orders and add-on parts and orders and add-on services, because I'm pulling every single line item back, well, I get partial totals, right? Because like 23-007, it's got three different parts. So it's got this line for the chronotron or chronoton converter, this line for the collector pedal, and this line for the Hayes-Zhao field isolator. Well, that's great, but those are separate lines. I need to be able to total my parts and services. So for both parts and services, I have an additional knowledge view, which is orders and add-ons parts and orders and add-ons services totals, which again are normal knowledge views. In this case, they only have one column. It doesn't make much sense, but what it actually is doing is it, for each form, it is totaling up the order for each of the line item totals. And so it's just giving me that total. Again, it's just pulling it from the parts form, and it's associated with the fulfillment case definition. So it's only giving me stuff that's associated with a fulfillment case. The columns are just the parts total column that gets created in the form, and I'm pulling that out separately. And the reason I'm pulling it out separately is because I'm going to use it in the report separately. And then I have another knowledge view, which is just all of my, what is it? Now I've forgotten the 5 things. Orders and add-on parts, orders and add-ons, products. There, I have my orders and add-ons products. This knowledge view right here, which is the actual orders. Well, let me go into case. There we go. Orders and add-ons products. And that's just a similar one because on my order form, remember, I have multiple products because there's that array as well. So I need to be able to pull that data for each of my orders. So as you can see in this order, 23-003, I've got 2 products that were ordered, and I've got to be able to get each of those line item totals for those products, and I've got to be able to get the sales tax for those products, and then I can calculate whatever the total is for them. So on the report, I have these 5 different knowledge views that are running. So I can build my base data in a knowledge view if I know what data it is that I need. And then I can just go into the report builder and I can just design that report in the report builder to pull all of that data together. Now, we are not going to go into the details of building reports. I've got an entire knowledge view on that. All I will say is that in the, sorry, I said I have an entire knowledge view on that. What I meant to say was I have an entire training webinar on that, on building reports. However, if we look here, in that particular training webinar, I only use a single data source, but I used 5 here, and that's fine. I can pull data from all 5 of these data sources. And for each one of the fields that I need to use, so here's like this field here. It's orders and add-on products dot name. So this header band just has the name for that product that comes out of the orders and add-ons products knowledge views. And the same thing down here. It's got the subtotals for each of the, well, that's for the products. For each of my parts, I've got my orders and add-ons parts data and my orders and add-ons totals data here. I can just create the different fields from each of the different reports. Again, I'm not doing anything special here. I'm just building a report from knowledge view data. If I was to run this report right from here, because we just saw all those knowledge views, and if you noticed, all of those knowledge views showed me everything in the system. And if I just run this form, or I'm sorry, it's not a form, it's a report. If I just run this report, and I'm going to want to make this a little smaller, this report is 8 pages long because by default, because I'm seeing this report, well, I guess we could make it a little larger, huh? Let's go to page width. So this report is 8 pages long. It is showing me every order and every parts order. I'm still just in orders itself. Page 3. Okay, and finally into parts. So parts add-on is P01. This was a testing one. Sorry. This is what it's supposed to look like. Order 23-007, parts add-on P01. And here's parts add-on P02, and here's 2308. It's showing me everything because my knowledge views show me everything. And we can get into services. So finally, there we go. We get into services. We're on page 6. Let's just go to page 8. And there we go. There's my services total and my grand total. Well, great, but this is showing me everything. Again, I didn't do any special configuration to use this in a case. When I go to order 25-003, I'm in case context. When I click this button, that case context is now stuck on this report and all of the knowledge views that are being used to generate the data for this report. I don't have to do any special configuration to ensure that this report shows me only the data from this case. That all happens automatically. And that's one of the things that makes case so powerful, is that I could have a process that might run independently outside of case context, and I don't care about cases most of the time when I'm running it. But I could also call that process from inside a case, and that single process instance would now be part of the case and would be reportable from that case. Even if it was only one out of 1,000 instances, that would be the one instance that would show up whenever I create the case. So it's the power of case combined with the fact that the only time I ever have to configure anything about that case is if on the form itself, I have to set some case values. That is usually true. I usually have to do that. But all I have to do is set this property here on the form so I know what case is getting created. And then when I go to my form controls and I have some data that needs to be sent over to the case instance, all I got to do is just set the case property for it. That's really the only special configuration that I ever have to do on a process director object, the form that is kicking off the case. I've probably got to, I've got to set whatever case I want to kick off whenever the form is submitted. And I've got to supply the names to the form fields that are going to supply the case values. In this case, it all comes off of this form. Once I've built these form controls and I have set those case properties, I never really have to think about the case again. I don't have to worry about it whenever I create any knowledge views because it's always going to pull back only the case data that matches the case that I'm using. So I would urge you, if you have never used case management, to think about some of the more complex things that you do with whether you're doing them with Process Director yet or not, and seeing if those objects might be better off used as case objects or case processes rather than as single, one form, one process timeline BPM processes, because I think CASE gives you a much better, much broader overview of everything that is going on in a linked set of transactions than trying to, what we tend to want to do is to build a knowledge view with all of these complex filters to pull back just the data we need. It's a lot easier if you don't have to worry about that at all. If you could build one knowledge view that pulls back all of the data and then just display that knowledge view in a CASE dashboard, what do you care about the filters? You don't need them, because Process Director is just going to filter them down to the case level for you, and that's going to happen automatically. Well, we are rapidly approaching noon, which means I got to shut up and let you get on with your day. Noon tomorrow, we're doing a community AMA in the Circle community. If you're not a community member, please join up. Just let me know. I'll send you an invite and we'll get you right in. Tomorrow, I'll be on from 12 to whenever, and we're just going to do an Ask Me Anything session, an AMA. And if you want to talk about something other than Process Director, happy to do that too. Make it more of a social thing than a boring old Process Director thing. So show up tomorrow. I'll look forward to seeing you then. And otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week. So long.